What's up guys, and welcome back to another video. Today's video we're talking the Rugby World Rankings, which have obviously updated today after the Six Nations clashes that took place this past weekend. Big wins for some of the teams, obviously a postponement in others, and then obviously the big one that everyone was talking about after the weekend, Wales versus England, where England unfortunately lost another one and Wales gained 2 spots in the World Rugby Rankings, make it their highest position that they've been in a year, which has obviously been quite a tough one for Wales. 2020 was a year Wales would want to forget. Now they are sitting at 5th in the Rugby World Rankings, which is pretty outstanding considering where they were just a year ago. You know, we've spoken about the challenges, we've spoken about what they've done to get to where they were, but also we've talked about what Coach Wayne said at the start of the season. Wales could potentially win the Six Nations. I mean, a lot of us laughed at him, thought it's impossible. Look what they're doing now. They're sitting with an opportunity to win the Guinness Six Nations of 2021, and deservedly so. They've had a phenomenal tournament. Yes, all games haven't been great shakes. You can talk about the red cards and all that stuff, but you know, at the end of the day, they're putting out the results, they're getting their important wins, and they're sitting at the top of the log of the Six Nations, and deservedly so. Now obviously right now you've got France as a challenge. France and Scotland was postponed, so we can't really gel as to, or see as to where things are going. France could have beaten Scotland convincingly and would have taken the top, or Scotland could have potentially beaten France. Obviously we know the 16 COVID cases that affected that whole French team. I mean, that could have put them down in a very tough situation if that game had gone ahead. There's mixed emotions for that game. A lot of people said it should have gone ahead. It's France's own fault for going out of their bubble and for getting infected, so why must Scotland suffer? You can hear points of that story and agree with it too. Then there's also some saying that how can this game go ahead when Scotland are going to play a second, third team French side? So there's every comment and chirp that's been up in the moment, but at the end of the day it was postponed, and we're going to hopefully see it happen soon. And then we will be able to justify or put to a point of to who will probably potentially win the Six Nations. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to Wales taking on France for that Grand Slam title. I mean, Wales got it 2 years ago. Can they do it again? Why not? But there's also France, who's sitting with 11 years without having it, and deservedly so. I mean, France, as much as we credit Wales, have come a long way too. They were in a shocking form of events in 2020 or 2019, sorry, should I say. It just wasn't the French team we know. Then they started gelling at the end of last year at the Autumn Nations Cup, at the Six Nations as well, where they started off with a bang. 2020 was a year of improvement and recovery for French rugby, and we could see it. And then they started this year's Six Nations. They're currently undefeated, playing cracking rugby, and are now sitting at 3rd in the world rankings right now. So England have dropped from 3rd to 4th. France now move up to take over their position. You may ask, Gareth, how the hell can that happen when France didn't even play last weekend? It's the same debate that we're having with the South African story. Well, because France are currently sitting strong, win their points, nothing happened, nothing changed. Therefore, with England losing to Wales, and Wales were lower than them in the world rankings at number 7, points got deducted from England, therefore giving France the opportunity to move ahead. It's only just, but they still could overtake them and just become 3rd place, which is a first in a long time. Ireland have dropped to 7th, which is their lowest of all time in the year of well, definitely Andy Farrell, but I think it's the lowest ever in the World Rugby Rankings. So more questions are going to be asked. Yes, they did beat Italy, but because they beat Italy, who are currently sitting at 15th in the world, not many points are going to be gained. Ireland really need to beat Wales, England and France in order to move up the rankings so that they can gain points. Beating anyone lower than them, it's just not going to be much of a big booster for them. Scotland are still sitting at 8th. So nothing's happened really there. Australia leapfrog from 5th to 6th. Obviously, Wales overtaking both Ireland and Australia in the world rankings, which is outstanding, and the rest of the teams remain the same. So your biggest changes: Samoa moved from 15th to 14th, as Italy now dropped from 14th to 15th. So they are currently sitting at 15th in the world. Georgia is ahead of them, so more questions are going to be asked. I know Franco Smith, the coach of Italian rugby, said it's going to take 8 years for this Italian squad to be competitive in the Six Nations. Well, it's been since 2015 since they last got a win, let alone be competitive. Can we really wait 8 years in order to qualify which team's which, or how a team has improved, or how 8 years can decide whether or not we should have a relegation or go back to 5 nations? It's a long time to wait. That's more than 2 World Cups, obviously. So a lot of question marks going there. But as for the rest of the teams, South Africa, New Zealand remain at first and second. But obviously from 3 to 7 we're seeing changes, and we'll continue to see changes as the Six Nations progresses. We'll only really see the Southern Hemisphere top 2 start changing when the Rugby Championship gets underway, or if we get international games during this year, then we will see that happening and things start moving around, which obviously we all as international rugby fans are hoping does actually happen. So as for that, congratulations to France for moving to 3rd. Congratulations to Wales, especially for your amazing comeback from 7th to 5th in the world. At one stage, 2019, you were number 1. Then you just unfortunately dropped. Questions was, is Coach Wayne the right guy for the job? But they needed time. And the question goes to ask, do we need more time for Andy Farrell? Or should Andy Farrell get fired? Technically, Andy Farrell and Fabien from France started at the same time. We're seeing great improvement from France. Not much sparks from Ireland, except for obviously beating Italy. But, I mean, come on, it's Italy. So, all these little question marks are going to be asked over the next few weeks as we approach the finale of the 2021 Six Nations tournament. Andy Farrell, question mark. England, Eddie Jones is a question mark. What are we going to do to see improvements? I still rate Eddie Jones. I still think he's a great coach. I just think England's going through a tough time. But does that mean it's now time for England to change? That we will have to wait and see as we approach the Six Nations finale. Because I'm sure if England don't do any better or don't pick up a win, then unfortunately I see Eddie Jones's reign coming to an end. Question marks also over Owen Farrell's leadership, the ill discipline from the squad, Maritoja giving away too many penalties. A lot of question marks all around through these teams that have dropped in the World Cup or in the world rankings. So a lot will need to happen in order to improve the game, and a lot of people will still be asking us questions as we progress through to this end of the tournament. We won't see change in the rankings for the next 2 weeks as Six Nations is on hold. I think it will bounce back on I think it's the 13th or the 14th, unless Scotland and France get scheduled in between, which I hope for the sake of sport it does, because 2 weekends without Six Nations is going to be tough. But hey, so is life. That's going to do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you all real soon for another one. Stay safe and never give up. Cheers.